How's it going, everybody? Hope you're all doing well. So we're progressing on with the Minuteman kit series, how to build one. We are moving on to special equipment, meaning things that I didn't talk about or maybe just briefly spoke about in the earlier videos. These are smaller items that I would suggest that you have, and some of them are a very cheap alternative and some of them are very expensive, but I wanted to give kind of a roundabout, like, in general, other items that I didn't discuss. So we're going to go down the list. I'm going to give you my recommendations. So the first thing we're going to talk about is helmets. So why would I suggest something like this? A helmet, or even like this, which is a bump helmet, and this one is a Kevlar, or an actual hard helmet that stops shrapnel and smaller projectiles. Why would I suggest something like this? Mainly two reasons. One is having accommodation for special items like this one is set up, which we'll get into. And another one being a hard protection against shrapnel. Now, in combat-based environments, you're using your weapon system properly, there's probably going to be a lot of metal material flying around you, as in bullets and ricochets and spalling, and your head is very, key in keeping that. So this is a good tool and has been used for hundreds of years, thousands if you really think about it, and it works very well for stopping projectiles and whatnot. Next, like I said, is putting things on it. This has a night vision mount. This has ear pro on it. This has comms wrapped into it, so I can still protect my hearing and listen to communications between other group members or other neighborhood protection folks, defensive force around me and giving me information. And I'm still protecting my hearing at the same time, while a bunch of people may be firing weapon systems that are damaging my hearing. You can have lights and other items attached to this, so it assists you in doing certain tasks. Like I can aim this light down while I'm taking notes or something like that, as long as light is legitimate. You don't want to give away your position, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So helmets is a recommendation. I do include them in my kits. You don't have to, but recommendation. Next, probably one of the most key things is body armor. I would highly recommend getting body armor, specifically going with a plate carrier. I know we discussed it prior, and I talked about having the H harness, which is a solid tool. Budget-wise, this is not too much of a budget item. It is in certain realms, which I'll discuss right here. This is a normal kind of Kevlar ceramic-based plate. These go for anywhere $200 to $500 a pop. Normally you do a front and a rear, so it's very expensive, but there are alternatives. AR 500, which is right here, this plate is a steel plate that does roughly the same thing for way half the cost. Now, is it as comfortable? No, and it is much heavier, but it still works. A lot of people hate on me saying, oh, AR 500 is garbage, and when a round hits, the round explodes, creating spalling in a way, just because of the kinetic energy, and it shoots up into your eyes and your chin and everything like that. But I would rather take that risk if I'm wearing proper protective equipment, like say goggles and other stuff like that, than having a round go through my chest. Personally, that's just me. And you can pick these up for like 70 or 80 bucks, a little bit more, just for one plate. So you're talking like $150, $160 to protect your life, potentially. I would definitely invest in that. That's my opinion, and I've invested in body armor, at least stuff for myself and for my wife personally. So you can talk to all kinds of other people out there on YouTube that are in the same mindset, and I guarantee they would agree with me. So moving on, next is handcuffs and detainment systems. This is one item that people overlook a lot, is detaining people. When you're defending your property, or in general from an opposition, you are going to get wounded people from the other side, or your enemies. You are going to get people that give up and throw down their weapons. What do you do with them? I mean, granted, most people say, oh, we'll just, dispatch them all. I mean, you could do that. That could be your SOP that your neighborhood goes with. But honestly, people are very valuable. They can give you information, they can help you work, they can even be, in a way, converted, depending on what they were doing. Some people do things because they have no other choice, but when given a choice, they will choose to do the moral route. Granted, not all the time, I'm not a psychologist, but just from seeing what I've seen on the battlefield and, been overseas, third world countries and whatnot, a lot of people are forced into situations because they have no other choice. So when you give them a choice, they might come over to your side about it. So in my opinion, you can't just dispatch everybody you come upon. I'm just going in circles, but have these items because you're going to need them. You're going to be faced with a crazy situation that you weren't prepared for. Be like, how do we detain this person? Do you want to just be in that situation? Most of the time, no. So have these easily detained. We're going to do a whole video just on detainment process without rule of law. So that'll be another video coming up in another thing. Optics. So that is weapons-based and just visual or binoculars or monoculars. Optics are huge in this realm and they're very overlooked. If you can see something better than your enemy can, you are going to be better off. You're going to have better information, better intel. That is huge. So you can observe something outside of your neighborhood defensive location. Maybe you have to find out if these people are hostile. You don't want to engage upon someone that's not hostile and you just didn't know because you couldn't see them. Or you're just gathering intel and information. A simple, cheap binoculars definitely help out a lot, being able to see your target. The Marines literally went to an ACOG on all of their smaller platform-based rifles, as in their M4s and HKs, or their 416 variants and stuff like that. Every single Marine has an ACOG for a reason, because optics work. It's a combat multiplier. It makes you more effective. If you can see more detail of what's occurring, you are more likely to make better decisions. So, optics, moving down to maps and GPSs. I got an ammo can next to me, sorry. But maps and GPSs, specifically maps, do overlays of your neighborhood. Do all around it so you can hand out and do multiple copies. Have each individual of your team or your group have particular maps that they can reference in case something would happen. So if we're in a defensive-based situation, you can say, hey, I'm in grid A7. Two people have breached the wire. I need assistance. Through radio communication, that's solid. And you can plan and do a lot more stuff with maps. Maps are very key. I mean, honestly, if you see any type of military, we use maps, we use comms. That assisted with us. Next, which I'm going to touch on very briefly because of legal reasons, but explosive-based items. There is a YouTube channel out there, Ordnance Lab. I've never met them. I've never talked to them. Their content is just really good. But they will explain how to legally, have explosives, what licensing you need, other things like that, to do it legitimate so you don't get in trouble with the law. Granted, I get it when the day comes, is there going to be laws, blah, 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 but I'm talking about right now. We have a legal system in place. We're going to follow it. That's what we're going to do. So I'm not going to touch too much on it, but you get my gist. Those are specific items that you can use to assist you in defending your family and your, neighborhood. Next is note-taking material. A lot of people do not have note-taking material on them. Honestly, it's crazy how many soldiers or airmen that I go with and hey, I need you to write this down, and they just kind of, I don't have anything to write with. You don't have a pen or a pencil or a piece of paper? If I'm relaying you information, a good amount of information, I need you to take it somewhere. I want you to write it down so you don't have to remember it. So if you're out, defending your neighborhood, or for some reason you're doing casualty collection point and you need certain items and you have to run back to your command post and say, hey, this is what happened. Can you regurgitate all that information 100% properly? Probably there's some of you out there could, but the majority of us can't, unfortunately. So writing, note-taking material, big thing you should probably have. Marking devices. be IR or visual. I think you should carry a bunch of these. These are literally Walmart branded stuff. You can get the military stuff too, but loud truck, my neighbor. Anyways, you can get these really cheap, and you can mark specific items, or locations. Like, hey, the red chem stick says, don't go over there, we've been breached. Or blue means there's a casualty collection point over there. And 2 greens in a parallel line means this. It could just mean whatever you need. You can come up with your standard operating procedures, but marking things is very key and is often overlooked. Instead of saying, hey, go all the way down 9 houses, make a right, then make a left, and then you should see a bunch of guys there. Why don't you just say, hey, go down to that general area and look for a blue chem stick that's really bright? Okay, perfect, that works. Moving on, more expensive based aspect, night vision. Being able to see at night. Now, this is an expensive one, like I said, but it is a huge combat multiplier. Now, I get it. It would be a perfect world if you could afford these for every single person in your neighborhood protection group. But if you establish a group and say have monthly meetings and say you put like dues or something, like just simple amount of money, if you work up to one of these devices for your whole neighborhood, when something happens, you could post that individual in a strategic location at night to observe everything that's going on with a radio. You don't have to have every single person having $3,000 night vision. You can, like I said, strategically place that person, and he can relay information to other members down on the ground or maybe further away because he can see better. So $3,000 is a lot easier to swallow than, say, $20,000 for outfitting, 5 people or 10 people. So night vision thermal capability is huge. I would recommend it if you have the budget or you want to work towards it. I did. It took me a very long time to work my budget to affording $3,500 night vision. It did not happen overnight. It took many, many years for me to get there, and being patient and, specifically putting my money aside for that item. So it's possible. Next is other smaller items that I can't really show. Let me give one item actually really quick. I don't want YouTube to freak out because the last time I showed a specific pew pew item, they demonetized me. So a suppressor, an item that you guys are probably reasonably familiar with, very effective on the battlefield for masking your location where you're engaging to. Now, it's just a recommendation. You don't have to have these, like I said, but it is a combat multiplier. Same with IR devices mounted to your pew-pewers. Let's just say that you can utilize to see through night vision and still properly engage. So, kind of covered a lot of items, a lot of different stuff. Hopefully you guys found this at least something of value. That's what I try to do. We're going to be progressing into another series here pretty soon of actually establishing a neighborhood protection plan or a defensive perimeter, all that stuff, SOPs. We're going to have entry control points, how to set it up, how do you establish barriers and boundaries like barbed wire or glass or nails, like all kinds of different items all come together to defend your home and your family. I want to share that information with you. So if you guys want to see more of this, definitely hit like, subscribe, definitely throw comments in this section below. What did I miss? Because there's probably some items that I did miss and you probably already called it out and already know about it, and I'd like to hear about it. So thank you, and I hope y'all have a great day.